Hi everyone. So just a quick introduction so you don't confuse who I am today. Wild Asia, we are actually a management consultant, technical management consultant. So we provide advisory support. A few years ago, we decided to test some of our knowledge on certifications and apply this with smallholders. So I stand before you today as a group manager for smallholders. We are not growers, but we basically wanted to test out the system and see how to certify smallholders. And in particular here, it's independent small producers. So I stand before you now as a group manager for a group of independent smallholders. As of today, Wild Asia has 3 independent smallholder groups certified, 2 in Sabah, 1 in Perak. They're small groups. They're meant to be used as a learning curve for us as well, and to see whether we can actually develop a system that's sustainable and that can be self-running to actually certify independent smallholders. So before I go, so today what I want to actually present to you is what are some of the challenges in certifying independent smallholders. And before I even go into that, I just want to take a step back to explain to you what does it take to support smallholders first. So I wanted to separate the two because people always tend to say, oh, certifying smallholders is difficult. Actually, to start off, just grouping smallholders, bringing technical support, there are also its challenges, there are also its hurdles that we have to address first. Then we come to certification. So we started out by just understanding how do you group small farmers together? How do you bring them the technical support? What is our objective? And then to think about the element of certification. So if you look at smallholders, if you see the definition, it says, it says farmers where the family provide the majority of the labor and the farm provides the principal source of the income. And if you think of the context today, it doesn't really happen. This is not really the case. You see a lot of farmers in the field who have migrant workers who have outsourced the work because the profile of a Malaysian small farmer is someone who is above 50 years old. So there are very few younger people on the farms and they have to depend on external workers. So there's this whole element of foreign labor on plantations and how that's dealt with. Principal source of income, that's also a question mark because we deal with absentee farmers. So that's another hurdle that we have to cross when we deal with small farmers, yeah? So sometimes we're not even talking to the farmer or the person who owns the land. We're dealing with farm managers and so forth. Although in reality, they all still earn below 50 hectares. So there are some other elements. It's not as, it's not like you go to the field and you actually see the farmer and he's in the farm and he's working his own land. There are other elements to consider as well. So our key objective with the farmers, really, when we started this whole program, and it's as Julia has said, we don't want to see smallholders marginalized from this whole sustainability drive. We want to encourage sustainability across all growers, including smallholders. So our key objective was to organize farmers and take them towards sustainable production. So looking at social, environmental impacts, health and safety, maximizing output, minimizing impacts, see how we can manage them at a landscape level. So getting that itself required quite a few things. Obtaining farmer baseline info, this was the hardest to do. If you want to start anything, you need to start with documentation, or not even documentation, just what are you doing on your farm? What is your practices? How often do you fertilize? How often do you sell? Where do you sell to? What do you do? Who do you use? We had to have an understanding of what are the natural groupings. So how are the farmers currently organized or not organized? Or are there associations? Are they in villages? What is the most natural grouping? Because we don't want to go in and create groupings that will not sustain over time. Building trust. So I said Wild Asia, we're not growers. To even engage and start with the farmers is a difficult thing. And so right now what we are proposing with all the standards saying that the mill or the direct supply chain people should take on group management, I completely agree with that. It should be the people directly involved, the smallholders, because building trust takes a long time. How do you communicate with smallholders? That's also another challenge getting to farmers. Some are illiterate. So maybe visual communication, WhatsApp, Facebook. Some might not have internet access, so you have to think about certain ways to get to the farmers. Establishing what are key topics of focus relevant to smallholders. So there's so many topics being thrown around like GHG, peat, labor, wage, productivity. I mean, we talked about this in the last 2 days. What are really relevant to the small farmer? And even if it's relevant, how do we bring that message across to them to tell them, no planting on peat? And if he's only got 1 hectare that is on peat, what do you tell him? So it takes a bit of time to think about what do you tell the smallholders so they don't also feel worried and scared about the whole process. Addressing absentee farmers, so again, how do you deal with farmers that are not there? And financing of support work. So these are some of the key things that we go through just to group farmers and take them to a sustainable production. Then there's this question of why get them certified, and do they need to be certified? So yes, it's good to be certified for a farmer, especially now with the industry moving towards this direction. You have the RSPO certification standards, which is a really credible tool, and it can be used to communicate what you're doing. So it allows to sell a certified product, companies buy and use it for effective communication. So having your certification does help. Does the farmer actually take the RSPO cert and put it up in his house? Maybe not, but it allows for open market access, it allows for better support, it allows buyers to actually come into the place. So it is a good tool for smallholders to be certified in the long term. So today I'm actually going to go through what are some of the challenges in getting certified. So all the elements of grouping farmers and taking them to sustainable production is one thing. Getting certified has its own challenges. So the first thing I want to highlight, which is actually a lot to do with what Julia was going through just now, is really the standards. So there has been a lot of confusion about what standards. When we had the old standards, if you look just at the Malaysian NI and the requirements that were put in, I mean, when we went through the first audit with BSI, in the old Malaysian NI, it's not clearly defined under which criteria, under which indicator, which is major, which is minor, how is this assigned. So there was a lot of room for open interpretation between the client and the CB. That now has been resolved with better standards. We have the new standards. It took 2 rounds of public consultation, longer approval time, and now we're in this interim period still. So next year, this will be done and dusted, so that's good. But it did take quite a long time to get here. Complexity level compared to the old standards. So if you look at the old standards and you look at the current one, although it's more aligned and it's better, you know, there are these elements of complexity that we have to take into consideration and get the small farmers ready for. So if I look at it, even for me, it takes me a while to go through the standards and to look at the guidance for group manager, look at the guidance for farmer. And sometimes I think if this was a group run and managed by small farmers, and we want to capacity build our farmers to one day take on this role, I'm really not sure how to do that at this point, but it is something that we're looking at. And then are the new standards understood by all? Are CBs trained on this? Is there any element on this? And it's something that I wanted to ask ASI as well. Are CBs that are accredited to do group certification, are there any additional extension requirements for them? I don't know, but we can answer now or later, it's fine.
Yeah, so I can answer maybe quickly now. So it used to be a separate accreditation scope which required CBs to apply for group certification, and then we would conduct a desk review of their procedures, the auditors, etc., and we would do a witness assessment. Based on discussions we have with CBs, also internally, and I think also with RSPO, this has been simplified, and now group certification is a sub-scope of PNC. That means that there isn't a separate accreditation requirement. What we say is that we reserve the right to witness the first assessment or assessments of the CB. So we want to know it when CB is conducted, and we might or might not witness it.
Right. Okay,
that's,
I think
that's
that's
the current situation.
I think that's good because there's the whole element of group certification that doesn't pop up with a normal PNC, and it does pop up with group certification.
Okay. We can always tighten the system if there is justification, but we thought that it's not justified to have a separate accreditation scope just for group and group PNC.
Okay, so that's just standards. Then the next point in some of the hurdles that we face is documentation requirement. So you saw all the documentations that smallholders now have to also provide to. We have maps to give. We have the compensation and remediation we have to look into. There's also a whole element of all the regular information that is required. So if you go to an estate or plantation, you see his fertilizer, you see his chemical, that's quite easy. Imagine when you're managing small farmers, you have one farmer and he has 3 plots of land. Then I have 100 farmers. If each have 3 plots of land, that's 300 farmers, so I have to collect 300 GPS points. I have to collect 300 fertilizer requirements and different types of fertilizer. I have to collect 300 different types of chemical requirements. This all has to be managed in one place. If I'm just using my time to support the farmer towards sustainable production, it's one thing, but when you're getting certified, you need to have this evidence of documentation. So all this actually takes a lot of time. Raising NCs. So we have, this is one point I do want to bring out, especially with CBs. Raising NCs with group certification is very different from raising NCs in PNCs. When you raise NCs in group certification, majors and minors are defined by the degree of systematic failures of the system, because what you're trying to do is put in a system for group management, and that's where the ICS comes in. So if I have 100 farmers and one farmer is doing something bad, do you automatically give it an NC? I think you have to look at the degree of whether the system has failed, whether the group manager and the ICS has not done its job, rather than look at the individual farmer, because the whole group certification is dependent on each and every farmer. It's a one set. So this is also a frequent point of debate between us and the auditors. Engaging CBs. So in the recent couple of months, I've spent a lot of time calling and writing and emailing CBs and asking who will do my group certification. To start with, there are not many CBs that are able to do certification, and then there's a lower interest in group certification because of complexities, and maybe also the standards have changed, so that's added to the complexities. So that's been a challenge for us, really, really a challenge personally for me as well. So I think just to wrap up on this slide, we need to ensure consistency in interpretation by all. So I recommend workshops like this. I think they're really good to keep everyone on the same page, especially between clients and CBs, and everyone should be referring to the same document. So this is a great opportunity to bring up some of these. Then some of the other issues also in getting certified: audit and data management costs, audit fee. So with the growing number of members, auditors will have more man days on the field, and that will also lead to higher costs. So as a group manager, I'm thinking about what is the cost to expand my group, and what is the audit cost going to go with it. So you've seen I'm not going to go through this, but you can see if you go from 100 to 500 members, automatically the man days required by the auditor doubles, and that is an element of cost. I also have administrative costs for data management when I present the data to the auditor. Premiums don't cover basic costs, and that's a fact. I don't get enough premiums to actually cover the costs. We are running on funding right now by buyers, supporters to the group management. So basically, who is bearing the cost? How do you develop a model that's self-sustaining is really necessary. This takes time. Also, some push from RSPO in terms of getting mills to take on some of the work. It's actually a very good way to push this forward. Another point I want to bring out is farmers' perspective. So if you're just going to the ground and doing a support program for farmers, it's very simple. They don't look at it as a threat. They're fine. They'll come, they'll do the training, and so forth. Once you start formalizing it and making it a certification, there's public summary reports, their names are on cert, farmers do tend to get a bit skeptical about why this is all being published. Some farmers are afraid of income tax. Some farmers don't want to declare what they have. So it does make the farmer wary when it comes to being in a formal system. And then there's also the risk of exclusion. So we have to be very, very careful. I know it's very good to say, yes, we don't want to marginalize the farmers, but you know, having all these data on the farmers, and we have been asked by a lot of people, give me this data on the farmer, give me that data. We represent the farmers, and that's our first priority. We don't want anyone to use this information to exclude any farmers. We have had, personally, farmers come to us and say, are you going to go and tell people that I'm planting in the forest? We don't want them to plant in the forest. We want them to be sustainable, but we want to be able to address these issues rather than exclude them. So yesterday in the RSPO Next, with the line at the bottom that said, the last resort is exclusion of farmers, I think that line should just be removed. It should never be even in there. I think we should address all farmers, even if they're doing bad things. I think we need to not certify them, but address some of these issues. So it's just a very important point that I feel just needs to be considered when we deal with farmers. And the last one is, there are also other membership requirements. So if you want to be certified, you have to do the administrative documentation, membership, ACOP, there's a group membership fee, and there's keeping abreast with all these changes. So going from the old NI, which NI, to this new NI, I don't see any group managers besides World Asia that's here. So how would they keep abreast with what's the changes? You need basic requirements, all the documents are English. I don't know how this would be taken up by an independent smallholder, although I do see some good cases in Thailand and Indonesia, so maybe some learning and sharing will be good. So in conclusion, I think addressing smallholders, getting them certified, is a really good initiative and it should be supported. I think more participation, active participation from buyers, from the real people on the ground within the supply chain is the only way to make this sustainable and going in the long run. But there is the whole element of cost and who bears it and how it's taken up, which should be addressed. I feel the audit processes should be simplified so there's a better alignment between the clients and the CBs as well, and there's less room for interpretation because, as you can see already, just supporting smallholders is a big challenge with all the issues that we have on the ground to deal with. So I want to spend less time on the audit process. If that can be made simplified, that would be really good. Cost needs some review. That's it.
Thanks, Sheila. I specifically want to thank her for giving us this perspective because that is the reality on the ground, what the smallholders are facing. We are lucky because Sheila is able to express her mind and her heart on behalf of the smallholders. But the reality is, if you go to Ghana, or you go to some remote place in Sabah, where the potential group manager could be someone who is, one of the farmers, for example, taking the initiative to group his peer producers. You can expect how are they going to meet this requirement of documentation requirement, maps requirements, compensation, liability declaration requirements, and all these things. So all these things would need a lot of work to do to support the smallholders. Now, without further delay, I would like to now invite Sinniah to share with us his experience in auditing independent smallholder.
My first question, if you don't mind. Sheila, many thanks for your story. I just really love this. How do you convince smallholders groups to get certified? Is there a monetary thing? Are they driven by some sustainability goals? I don't know what it's working. No, use this
So basically, when we first went in, no one had even heard about RSPO. These are farmers, yeah? So to them, their priority is their farm, what yields they can get, any additional income, fertilizer. So they looked at us as probably in Malaysia, MPOB. So we didn't go in with sustainability. We didn't go in with all that fancy talk. We just went in with, listen, we just want to see if we can run a program with you and support you and look at how we can improve your management practices, particularly yield improvement. So we used, and we never talk about premiums on the ground because we are no one to commit to premiums. We're not biased. We really talk about, can we look at your productivity? Can we look at how we can help you to improve that? And we slip in all the sustainable matters through that. So we say, okay, if you are, like for example, farmers tend to have blanket spray because they think that's the best way to clean the farm, keep the snakes away, and basically the wives like the farm clean. So we tell them, you don't have to do this. You can do circle spray. You can save your money on costs. And we go in with this element. So we're actually slipping in sustainability practices through that. And then when they get to a point of understanding, then we bring in what is RSPO, what is this movement that's going on. Some of them might have heard of it from the mill, but they tend to relate RSPO with premium, so it's a very tricky situation. I think we tend to stick with the productivity.
Many thanks. There were some more questions here.
Yes, Sarah. I heard about the, as Ian asked about the how to convince the independent smallholder. How do you convince? How do you ask the independent smallholder who has the property that they don't want to be sold because maybe they are like a government employee? And then, yeah, you know, in Indonesia there are so many corruption. They want to hide their property. They have 100 hectares, 50 hectares. How do you convince them? How do you make them come to join to the certification? And the second one is, do you have the like bonus to the independent smallholder so they will join to be independent, like maybe supply with the right fertilizers, supply with the equipment, because there's a fund for that. Okay.
Okay, so the first question is dealing with farmers who are maybe reluctant to share information. And information is very, very important to certification, but also to improvement. So I can tell you, although we have 3 groups that are certified, I think maybe I don't have all the information of all the farmers. The reality of it is that it's a voluntary scheme. They will tell us if they have information. If they don't, I might not know it. I remember the day before the first audit we had with Sinniah, our manager on the field actually called me and said one of our farmers didn't declare one of the farms, and it just sent us into a frenzy of, oh my goodness, we didn't declare the farm. But this really does happen. We worked on one site for 2 years, and no farmers wanted to join, and we were really perplexed. And it's because they didn't want the government to know how much they actually make out of their land because of income tax purposes. It took us a while to realize things like that. And that's why we have a confidentiality agreement with our farmers, and we are very particular. We tell the farmers we do not release individual information, except for basic things, if they are agreeable. If they are not, they are not. And we can't force them. If they don't want to join, it's okay. We have farmers who have come for our training, and we say, please come for the training, carry on. At a time when you're ready to be a member formally and go for certification, do it. So although we certify 200 farmers, we actually have probably 300, 400 who actually come for training and stuff, so that goes on. Your second was bonus for the farmers. So we don't practice giving them anything. We don't give them PPE, we don't give them nothing. Because if you do that, then you start a cycle of giving things to them. We don't tell them there's a bonus, we don't tell them there's a premium, but if the mill does make a premium commitment and they buy, then we give it as a bonus at the end of the year. So there's no, at the beginning of the year, we don't say you're gonna get it. If it happens, it happens. We use things like the RT events. Julia makes invitation to smallholders to join. So we use that as a bonus as well. We say, if you're a good farmer from the group, we will take you to KL and showcase you. And so those are, this time in Bangkok, they'll be very happy. So things like that are used as bonus and carrots for them. We're also now looking into model farms, like trying to get model farms going where we look at productivity and so forth. But it's a lot of work as well. So although I say it sounds very idealistic, in the reality in the ground, we are still working on a lot of these things.
Just to add a little bit, just to add to that, whatever you have in your mind is actually is being discussed at the RSPO. So that's why earlier I mentioned about this smallholder strategy, as well as the smallholder strategy and also the jurisdictional approach. We hope we will bring more, a greater support to these smallholders. Over to you, Pak Sinniah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sinniah from BSI. Actually, Julia gave me very short notice to prepare this presentation, so I might have missed a lot of information, but you can always share with us your challenges. So first, outline of the presentation is I will share with you the certification unit and what we are certifying, RSPO membership registration, the RSPO IT system, internal control system, as well as documentation and challenges. So, well, the certification unit is a group manager and the 100% group members. So you have to make sure that all within the scope of certificate. So actually during the independent smallholder, we are certifying the FFB produced by the group members. It's the FFB is the one certified, and then they can sell the certified FFB. So they have two options of the selling the certified product through trading of green palm certificate. Again, it is also challenge for the smallholders to register under the green palm registration. I have seen big companies also having a problem when they do the registration. They do a lot of mistakes. So it is very challenging for independent smallholders. And then they also have an option of physical sustainable palm oil sales when the FIB is converted to CPO tonnage when they send to any mill as a certified FFB. And then actually I have audited independent smallholders in 2012. So now it's 2016, there's a lot of changes. I believe a lot of auditors in this room have constantly auditing independent smallholders, so they might have a better experience. So during my audit in 2012, so most of the smallholders, they are not aware that they need to be they need to have a RSPO membership. A lot of them, they don't not aware. So when we tell them that you must have a RSPO membership, so when we tell them that they need to have the RSPO membership in order to for us to audit, so they get very upset, but still they still have to apply for RSPO membership. Otherwise, certificate cannot be issued. So applying the RSPO membership is another difficult process. It's very tedious because recently we have applied membership. We also face a lot of communication, email, all these. So it will be very challenging for the independent smallholders as well. And then the other challenges is they have to do the RSPO annual communication of progress. So this is another thing is quite tough for the independent smallholders. If they don't have a guidance or someone is helping them like Wild Asia, I think it will be a very challenging to do the reporting on the RSPO. Okay, the group manager and ICS administrator, normally they speak local language. So it is also is challenging because most of the RSPO documents are not in local language. And then trading in a green palm certificate is also is not in local language. So they still need some kind of assistance. Otherwise, it's impossible for them to be 100% independent. And then as I said, most of the documents are not in local language. Even all the auditors, just now we are debating, we also cannot understand the requirement. So how will be the independent smallholders? Because everybody have a lot of interpretation within the auditors who have audited for many years. And then the farmers, they might have never seen the standard. So how they going to interpret? So it's a very challenging. So like Wild Asia, when they help the smallholders, it's also challenging for them to make the farmers understand the requirement. Because everybody have a different kind of interpretation. So training on the green palm and RSP IT system is also critical. Because if they don't register under the RSP IT system like E3 system, the CB cannot upload the certificate, report and PC template. So the group manager need to register. So how they going to register? Because everything in English. And sometimes we ourselves want to register our auditors into the E3s. We also need to fill up lot of information. So it's also challenging for them. And then as Sheila was explaining, so what I believe personally, independent smallholders, they need the external support. It can be from consultants or partnering palm oil mill. Otherwise, it's difficult for them to fulfill all the documentation and the requirement. Most of the time, the mill always support, but there are times that during the audit, I have seen that sometimes the mill also is having a difficult time to convince the independent smallholders to follow the requirement. So they have, in fact, some of the mill, they have appointed their own staff to assist the independent smallholder members. And then the education level versus experience. So most of the farmers, they are operating in the farm, so some 30 years, some can be 40 years, so they have a lot of experience in managing the farm, but in a traditional way, and then the family members and their friends working in the farm. So when they want to comply to certain certification standard, there is some requirement they must follow, then there is some restriction. So this is very difficult for them to accept. And then most of the time what I see that the records, all these, they give to the children to update. So sometimes they don't update. So the reason they give is their children are on vacation. So nobody update. Because of the education level, sometimes they cannot write correctly. So you can see a lot of error. So these are the challenges the auditor will face to check the data and make it is tally with what they have produced. And then most of the time the smallholders have their own way of managing the farm. Okay, because this has been a routine for many years. So when Wild Asia want to teach them a sustainable way, it's very challenging. Because they have been doing the same thing for many years, and then they consider like a PhD holder. So when we go and do audits, when we say you must follow this best practice, all this, they say they have been managing many years, and then production is good, they can manage very well. So it's also difficult to get what you want for them to comply to the requirement. Basically it's difficult to convince them to follow the standard practice as well as maintain the farm records. So most of the farmers are very experienced and are very old, so all the records are not in the book but in their head. So they just tell you the figures just from the head. So but for the auditing, you cannot make a judgment based on the figures from the head, but you need to see the records. So without the records, how we want to justify the compliance? So this is very difficult. Okay. Again, language constraints. So some countries, they don't speak English, they only speak local language. And then there's a very limited guidance in local language. Because now, like Julia showed the presentation, we have smallholder in Thailand, in Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as South America. I think Indonesia and Malaysia, no problem. Okay, I also can speak, but Thailand is difficult. Maybe Chayapon can. because he's a local auditor. But if I go, it's a very challenging. How are you going to do the audit? It's almost very difficult and impossible unless the CB have a local experienced auditor. Otherwise, the CB difficult to manage this kind of independent smallholder audits. Okay, understanding of the benefit of sustainable practice as well as the awareness of NPP requirement is very low. We can see even a very big company, big organization with multiple certificates, they also fail to do or comply to NPP. So what you can expect from independent smallholders? It will be more difficult. When the big organization cannot comply, is how to see the compliance to the independent smallholders. That's why they always look for external support. Why I say is leadership conflict is when they form the group, within the group, after some time they will have a conflict, who want to become a leader. So this kind of competition also possible to arise, and they also will share with you this kind of information during the audit. So you have to be prepared during the audit. And then external support for SCV, SCIA, NPP document is very critical. I think independently it's not easy for them to do these documents. It's almost impossible. Even big companies are taking a consultant and paying very expensive to do this. So how about independent smallholders? I think it's more difficult. Okay, again, finance, like Sheila also highlighted, audit fee. And then she also highlighted that CBs are reluctant to do the independent smallholder assessment because it's also related to finance. As you are aware, all the CB need to be accredited. The accreditation cost is not cheap, okay? It's quite big amount, but we still need to be accredited. Otherwise, we cannot do the audit. And then, because of that, we cannot charge, the CBs cannot charge a very cheap cost to the audit fee. So it's a very challenging for the CBs as well. And then, of course, as a smallholder, we need to charge lower than the big organization. But it's also challenging. If you charge a lower, how are you going to pay the accreditation cost? How are you going to cover your auditor cost? Because every year the auditor's salary must go up. Otherwise, they will resign, join another CB. So every CB meeting, you can see people are changing, you know. So it's not easy for the CBs to maintain experienced auditors. And then you want to maintain experienced auditors who have experience in independent smallholder or smallholder audit. It's not easy. And many CBs, I believe, reluctant because they don't have a competent auditors to handle confidently the independent smallholder assessment. Because it's so many requirements, so many things we have to comply, and then we are asking so many questions, everybody have a different interpretation. So this is a challenge. So finance is one of the obstacles. I can say it's an obstacle. That is why many CBs are trying to avoid going into an independent smallholder assessment. And also, once you have an independent smallholder certificate, ASI is going to check as well. So you have to have a competent auditors. You have to have a system in place to address all this. If your system is still not ready to address an independent smallholder assessment, so it's very difficult. Yeah. So, of course, the auditor's experience, all this is critical. Otherwise, it's very challenging for you to audit. I believe there are many auditors have done independent smallholder audits. The whole audit process itself is very challenging. It's not like a big plantation. You go there, they fetch you, put you in a very good guest house, they take care of your food, all this. But auditing independent smallholder, you are independent as well. So you have to organize everything on your own. You cannot expect anything from the independent smallholder. But if you got a big organization, you are like a king, you know. Everything they take care, they make sure you are comfortable. But independent, it's not like that. So that's why a lot of auditors have a different views on this. So of course, like I say, it's logistic arrangement. We have to arrange everything, you know, so it's quite tough. I think Arya have a very good experience because I observe his audit. So it's not easy. We have to use motorbike to ride to the field, and there are cases we walk many kilometers to go and see the smallholder plots. So physically you must be tough. So old man like me cannot, you see. So it's also difficult to get information prior to the audit. So also because of their education level, all this. So what the information we ask, sometimes it's difficult for them to provide a very accurate information. Although they provide everything, when you go to the site, when you check, there are a lot of error. So you have to check again. So this is one thing. Poor record keeping and documentation is generally happens everywhere, every certification. So these are some of the challenges that I can share with you. But I believe there is a lot of auditors have more challenges. So maybe you can share with all the other CBs, so at least they have a better understanding of the independent smallholder audit. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sinniah. Thank you for the presentation. I hope whatever he just shared with you all will not demotivate you to conduct audit to smallholders. More reason actually that you guys continue to help and audit this group of independent, group of smallholders, because we would like to bring more smallholders to get the benefit of being a sustainable producer. And if you don't audit them, then forever they will not be certified. So really, really hope CB will not feel demotivated with the presentation just now, but of course that is the reality on the ground. Honestly, it is a reality on the ground.
Sinniah, I have a question for you. Remember just now Sheila was presenting the questions on NC's major and minor. How does you address that statement raised by Sheila?
It's a very good question. Actually, when you audit the independent smallholders, of course they will have a group manager. It's very challenging for you to convince them to accept the NC. So it's not easy, you know. So you have to be a very knowledgeable, skillful, and confident in raising the NC. So like she said, systematic failure. So you have to demonstrate it is a systematic failure. Otherwise, they're not going to let you go. You see? Because not only the independent smallholder, but the group manager as well as others, they will have a farm manager, all this. They will ask a lot of clarification. So you have to really explain what is the requirement, what they didn't fulfill, and why you are raising the NC. And you must have all the evidence that it is a systematic failure. So you have to have a very good audit trail.
When you do the explanation, does it goes against actually the accreditation requirements that you are providing some guidance?
You are not providing advice. You are explaining the requirement. You can always explain what there is the requirement. There you can say, this requirement is this, but where is it? Requirement you can explain, but you cannot tell them how to fulfill the requirement.
I do appreciate the points taken. But as I said, there isn't really any additional accreditation costs if your scope includes Group PNC. So I would like to sort of clarify that. There's no additional annual cost, and with regards to witness, there isn't a mandatory witness assessment as it is, for example, if you have PNC and or supply chain, in which case we would have to conduct at least one assessment. So just to clarify that, if you want to have additional scope, your scope to include Group PNC, there isn't an additional accreditation cost by default. So I just want to make that clear. And we have implemented that specifically listening to the feedback from our SPO, listening to the feedback from Wild Asia, understanding that certifying smallholders is not easy. And of course, we also want to sort of support that. So my advice to the CBs who are going through accreditation now was to include Group PNC in the from the beginning. As I said, we do reserve the right to witness the first assessment, and that's because, in our view, just because something is small is not necessarily beautiful, and I mean there are sort of risks to the accreditation requirements, you know, and I don't think we need to sort of spend lots of time talking about it. But yeah, from our side, we would obviously also like to support these efforts. So yeah, please bear that in mind.
So far, the certification body should make the agreement with SI regarding the office audit, witness audit, compliance audit. And the scope of accreditation is PNC and STG. Now, since the certification of group manager is directly in the scope of PNC, is that right? So, if you need the witness for the certification group manager audit, means that the CB should pay for another witness audit. Is that right?
No. So this is what I'm saying. So we are not, so if BSI scope includes PNC and group, this year it doesn't mean that we will conduct one for PNC and one for group. So that's not the case. We might, if there are indications of non-compliance, complaints, etc., but by default, we are not conducting additional assessments.
Might can be anything, because you know the witness fee is quite significant, and also we heard that the fee for group certification manager is quite small, so we have to considering about the balance of this activity based on SI, CB, and the group to be certified.
Yes, but again, just to sort of reiterate, there isn't any annual fixed additional cost if your scope includes this, right? So is that be clear? There isn't an additional witness by default from ASI if you have this in your portfolio. We might, if there are complaints, indications of non-compliance, indications from RSPO, you know, I mean, obviously we want to have the right to go and witness the assessment or even to do a compliance assessment. But, as I said, we are trying to be pragmatic about this, and it's not the highest list on my sort of priority. So I'm not sure how to say this in a clearer way, but I don't know, Jan, is it clear what I'm saying?
I want to say something about this as well, because it's a concern, and I'm happy what you said, Laszlo, because you know the CBs have to understand there is no extra cost for you. Is that clear? I just don't understand why you are not taking up more group certifications. I just don't understand that. And I know what Sinniah said, and I'm happy that he didn't use the word problems, he used the word challenges. And I would like to challenge you to take up these challenges. because it is a concern of RSPO. And yes, we've had a discussion with ASI on that earlier times. You know, that we made sure this is not an extra cost for you, so you can't use that as an argument. You can't, because we will not accept it. So that's an easy one. That's, as far as I'm concerned, it's off the table. But I still don't understand why you are not taking up group certifications. Because listen what Sheila said, it is very, and I've had long discussions with Wild Asia. Up to a certain extent, that Wild Asia was telling me they're going to take the groups out of the RSPO scheme, because they can't find CBs. And that would be a bloody shame. So that's one I want to give to you, you know, before lunch, and to think about it. That you, as far as I'm concerned, you have to take them up. You are a CB or you are not a CB. And a CB means you are certifying RSPO schemes, whatever scheme. And yes, you have to be accredited for that, fair enough. But when you listen to what Lasse said, when you're PNC accredited, you are group certification accredited, period. So that's what I want to leave with you.
For those of you whose scope, so if you go on the RSPO or the ASI website, you will see that some of you will have a PNC scope and some of you will indicate that also includes group. So if you're not in that category, you do have to let us know that you will be conducting PNC group, and we continue to reserve the right to witness it. Yes? But again, just to repeat, we are aware of the cost issues. So, yes, I will leave you. Jan, help me out. I'm not sure how to say this differently. As an accreditation organization, we obviously cannot give you sort of a blank check and you do whatever you want to do. And if there are indications, we will go and witness it. But it's not high on my list of priorities.
So listen what he said and read in between the lines. Laszlo can't say what he's thinking at the moment. Read in between the lines. So listen carefully what he just said, okay? I can't be more specific either, for the same reasons. Because then I will get a head of Laszlo in my neck, so I won't do that. So listen. Okay, I'll leave it to you.
Listen, listen, okay, we are ready for lunch now. Lunchtime is shortened a few minutes. I just want to say that Eileen sent out homework. Okay, homework to many of you, which I received actually feedback on the challenges, experienced and perceived challenges, but I think most of them are already touched by Sheila and also Sinniah in the presentation just now, so I wouldn't go through that. So with that, I think that's the end of our session. I'm very happy to enjoy the session very much with very active participation from everyone. There are a number of action points on our side. We'll talk further together with ASI and to come up with some announcement for the clarification and the applicability of the group certification. It's also been raised the concern of the cost audit for smallholders, independent smallholders. Yes, it is a concern, but do remember that RSPO under the RSSF fund do support audit costs, to cover audit costs for this. And I think in the pipeline of RSPO Secretariat is to have specific training on this document, group certification for CBs also. So that will be announced sooner or later in our website. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.